Hello everyone, and welcome to this new video series on the Korean War. I'm your host, Ron May, author, historian, and speaker on war history and the stories of those who served. For episode 5, our focus will be on those who died during their service in the Korean conflict. The Korean conflict was labeled early on the Forgotten War, the one that came in between two much larger wars, World War II and the Vietnam War. Tragically, the Korean War was forgotten by many in our country, even while it was being fought in the early 1950s. More tragic than forgetting a war, however, is forgetting the many U.S. forces who served in Korea, and especially those who died in that war. Here are the grisly statistics. During the 3 years of combat, about 1.75 million U.S. forces served in the Korean theater. Of them, 103,284 were wounded in battle, and, most tragically, 36,574 were killed in action or died from other causes. The Korean War Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. honors all who served in that conflict and, more recently, memorializes those who died. The memorial was dedicated in 1995. It features 19 statues representing U.S. military personnel on patrol. In the background is the mural wall, a 164-foot-long, 41-panel black granite wall along the south side of the memorial. It is etched with over 2,400 period photographs of U.S. military personnel from all branches who served in Korea. The most distinctive feature of the memorial are the haunting faces of each soldier who have slogged through combat and reflect the infamous 1,000-yard stare. You can see the profound hardship that is revealed in each face. The newest feature for the Korean War Veterans Memorial is the Wall of Remembrance, dedicated on July 27, 2022. The wall is noted by the orange arrows. The wall stretches in a semicircle around the outside edge of the pool of remembrance that marks the apex of the memorial. Most importantly, the wall includes the names of each of the 36,574 American servicemen who died in Korea. Indiana has its own Korean War Memorial located in downtown Indianapolis along the grassy American Legion Mall. Created with Indiana limestone and shaped in a semicircle, the tall, cylindrical memorial is 25 feet high. A summary of the Korean War, along with excerpts of letters from Hoosier servicemen, adorn the convex side. The letters reveal the danger of those serving in the combat zone and the uncertainty of them making it home. Here are two such letters on the memorial. This one is from Marine PFC John Welch's of Huntington, Indiana, written on June 11, 1951. Dear Mom, Dad, Mary, and Sarah, the artillery behind us is going continuously. It really shakes the ground. The squad I am in hasn't had a casualty as long as they have been here, almost a year. Your loving son, John. John tragically was killed in action 8 days after he wrote this letter. Another letter was written by Gene Robinson of Franklin, Indiana. December 2nd, 1951. Dear Dad, then came the Chinese, wave after wave. Death walked through our rank last night. I wonder sometimes if I will ever make it from this place, back home again to Indiana. Your loving son, Gene. Gene survived the war. Later in life, he served 17 years as the Johnson County Director of Veteran Affairs. He died in 2006 at the age of 74. In an interview prior to his death, Gene said when he was suffering from the bitter cold in Korea during some of the harshest winter weather, he would think of home and hum the tune to the Back Home Again in Indiana. On the backside of the state memorial are the engraved names of the 927 Hoosiers who died in Korea. 927. It is difficult to mentally or emotionally connect with such a number of names. To get a more tangible feel for these losses, we need to break the number down further. Let's say to one county in Indiana. Morgan County, shown in red and located slightly south of the center of the state. Here we find just 10 names. William O'Beck, Floyd Chitwood, Russell Ed Dake, Wilbur Dean Davis, George Harvey, Lowry Hundley, John Losh, Gene A. Money, Ernest Sims, Dennis Franklin Steyerwalt. It's a much smaller number, a bit more manageable. But frankly, those names have almost faded from the memories of most people in a war that has struggled to remain in the U.S. historical consciousness 75 years later. But the 10 names are out there. They are found engraved in granite on the Morgan County Veterans Memorial. Located on the corner of East Washington and South Jefferson Streets in downtown Martinsville, just behind and across the street from the Morgan County Courthouse, the memorial was dedicated on November 10th, 2002. Here, briefly, are the stories behind the 10 names for the Korean conflict, which is located on the west side of the triangular granite pillar. Less than a month after the conflict began on June 25, 1950, Morgan County lost her first son, PFC Ernest Earl Sims. He enlisted in the Army in 1948 and became a member of Company M, 34th Infantry Regiment, 24th Division. Sims died at the age of 25 on July 21, 1950, during the 7-day Battle of Daejeon in southern Korea, shown with the yellow arrow on the map. The Battle of Daejeon delayed the advance of enemy North Korean forces and secured valuable time for other U.S. and South Korean forces to establish a defensive perimeter further south that became known as the Pusan Perimeter. The Pusan Perimeter, outlined in blue on the map, became the circle from which the North Koreans would advance no farther and progressively be turned back toward the 38th parallel. 2 months later, the conflict claimed the second Morgan County man. His name was PFC John L. Losh. Losh was from Brooklyn, Indiana. He enlisted in the Army in November 1948 and was assigned to the 1st Cavalry Unit as a field artillery cannoneer. He spent his first year in Japan before heading to Korea. Losh died on September 10, 1950, while defending the Pusan perimeter that we just mentioned in the previous slides. This 140-mile defensive circle, shown in the orange shade at the southeastern part of the South Korean peninsula on the map, was the only part of South Korea that had not been overrun by the enemy. And it was the first major battle of the Korean conflict, which saw 60,000 casualties for both armies, including John Losh. 5 months passed, and it was now 1951. It proved to be the deadliest year for Morgan County men in Korea. The first to lose his life in the new year was Master Sergeant Floyd Vernon Chitwood. Chitwood served with the U.S. Army's 38th Infantry Regiment, 2nd Infantry Division. He was a light weapons assault crewman. On February 12, 1951, Chitwood went missing in action while fighting North Korean and Chinese Communist forces during a 4-day battle near Hongseong in the northern part of South Korea, shown with the yellow arrow on the map. 5 months later, the Army declared that the missing in action soldier had actually been killed in action back on February the 12th. Remarkably, at the time of his death, the young 19-year-old Chitwood was already a master sergeant, that is, the highest enlisted rank. The unlikely rise through the ranks in such a short period of time came through rapid battlefield promotions, due both to exemplary performance as well as the Army's critical needs to replace higher-ranking combat casualties. Only 3 days after Chitwood's death, another Morgan County son was killed, this time an officer, 2nd Lieutenant George Washington Harvey. On February 15, 1951, the last day of the Battle of Hong Song, Harvey led his platoon on an assault of Hill 325. Unable to advance because of enemy machine guns, Harvey charged up the hill by himself and took out the enemy shooters using only his rifle and grenades. He enabled his platoon to secure their objective on the hill. But while they were defending the hill, Harvey was hit by an enemy mortar and died. 19 months later, on September 5, 1952, a 6-year-old named George Harvey Jr. had his father's Distinguished Service Cross pinned on him in a posthumous award ceremony for the dead soldier. Several weeks after Harvey's death, another Morgan County man was lost, PFC William E. Beck. Beck joined the Army in the late 1940s and served 2 years occupation duty in Germany. At the end of his tour, he re-enlisted. He was sent to Korea in October 1950 as a replacement troop in the Army 2nd Infantry Division. On March 7, 1951, UN forces, largely American, began Operation Ripper, which was also known as the Fourth Battle of Seoul. It was the offensive to engage the communist forces, recapture Seoul, and push the enemy back toward the 38th parallel. 2 days after the battle began, on March 9, 1951, Beck was killed in action, supporting the operation. He was 21. There was a short reprieve of 6 weeks before Morgan County mourned the death of another son. This time it was Private Russell Ed Dake, also known as Buddy. He was drafted into the Army and arrived in Korea in late March 1951. 1 month later, he was dead. Dake was killed in action on April 23, 1951, the same day the Chinese Communist forces began their massive spring offensive against UN troops north of the 38th parallel. The enemy movement is shown by the red arrows on the map at right. Dake was 24 years old at the time of death. Private Gene A. Money became the next local victim of the war. Money joined the Army in October 1950, and in March 1951 he left the U.S. for Korea and was with Company C, 17th Infantry Regiment, 7th Division. Money had the distinction of being in the only regiment, at least up to that point, to advance far enough north toward the 38th parallel to reach the Hwacheon Reservoir, shown with the blue arrow, during what was known as Operation Rugged, another offensive to push the communist Chinese forces back to the other side of the 38th parallel. Money was seriously wounded on May 25, 1951, and died in an Army hospital later that same day. He was 23. The other 3 names of Korean War dead engraved on the memorial are Wilbur Dean Davis, Lowry Hunley, and Dennis Franklin Steyerwalt. Little information is available on these men. They were not killed in combat, but still died from other causes while serving in Korea, and deserve our honor and remembrance. Just 10 names, but 10 names worth remembering, and 10 more reasons to be grateful for the 36,500 young men who paid the ultimate sacrifice to free South Koreans from a communist invasion while also serving our country. May they be remembered and honored. If you enjoy veteran stories, check out my World War II trilogy, Our Service, Our Stories, Volumes 1, 2, and 3. The books are available for purchase on my website, ronaldpmay.com. To contact me for questions or to schedule me for a speaking engagement, email me at ron@ronaldpmay.com. Also, be sure to check out all my other videos on my YouTube channel at World War II History and Stories with Ron May. You will find a link to my videos on the YouTube tab from the homepage of my website. Please consider liking and subscribing to my channel. Thanks for tuning into this episode. Please share it with others who you think may be interested. Coming in December 2026, I will resume the World War II series, which will be entitled World War II at 85, a look at the first 2 years of the war and those who fought in it. See you next month for Episode 6 of the Korean War and those who fought it.